Hello, hello.
Shalolo.
What's up?
Oh, Black at it again for another not so private conversation.
Another Martini Mondays.
Clink, clink, clink.
My class is already empty, but clink, clink.
You're going to have to fill up.
Can I get a refill?
How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. I definitely forgot that it's Thanksgiving this week, and I will just tell everybody to blame it on 2020 because I'm not prepared.
Sounds about right to me.
Yep. What was your week like?
Weekend was actually great. I was in New Iberia for a very small, private, socially distant wedding for my cousin. So
and
congratulations.
It was beautiful.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
Pictures were beautiful.
Gorgeous wedding. And now I'm off for Thanksgiving week.
What teachers do on their week off? Party?
We don't party, but we definitely get a lot of rest and relaxation. So we probably, if you're like me, you probably plan a week of things that you need to do. You map your schedule out. I'm going to work out. I'm going to go grocery shopping. I'm going to do this and this and this. And then you don't really end up doing anything other than laying in the bed watching Netflix.
Well, luckily, I'm nothing like you. I don't plan it out, so I don't feel bad when I don't do it.
I gave myself permission to rest and relax, and that is going to be all that I really do.
Good for you. I need to get on your level.
So this Thanksgiving is going to be maybe the second in my whole life where I'm not going to be spending it with my mom and dad.
So true.
Naturally, I feel away.
I'm not feeling away right now, but I know once the day gets here, I'm gonna be a little sad. But I've been kind of Thanksgiving hasn't really been as big as it used to be in my family, so maybe that's why I'm feeling like I'm feeling right now. But we'll see. We'll see on Thursday if I'm calling you crying off.
I'm just hoping we can FaceTime or we can Zoom or something like that, because it's always weird. My family's real close. It's weird not being able to spend holidays together, because that's like our fun, special time.
Right.
But we are trying to plan something for Christmas, so hopefully that'll work out and we can be safe enough to do that.
And it's right around the corner. It just sucks with all basically the COVID spiking right back up, like it never left, people. It never left.
It never left. So this past week, I have been thinking about emotional intelligence, what it is and why it's so important to have, and the areas of our lives where it's really important. And it has nothing to do with your actual IQ or how smart you are.
It's your EQ.
Right. Research shows that people with a high IQ are actually not the most fulfilled or the most successful, because book smarts don't have anything to do with your emotional being.
And it makes so much sense, because think about all the people who were just super smart when we were in school, and think about how they were socially.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like, do you know someone who's just really smart, really intelligent, but they struggle socially, emotionally, and in close personal relationships?
Yes. But you know how I was in high school. I was pretty much nice to everyone. So those people I would still talk to and clown with, but they were still like pretty awkward socially and didn't have a lot of social experiences that we had. So it seemed like they missed out on a lot of like high school.
Right. And I always wondered what that was all about. But your IQ, like your intelligence, is important, and it might help you get far in life in certain ways, but it's still also extremely important to have a healthy and a high emotional intelligence. And so I was thinking, I've been thinking about these types of things and like bring these types of things to you all the time. So I was like, here I go. So here she go, talking about her emotions.
Y'all, she sent me a quiz. Like, she sent me a quiz to take on emotional intelligence the other day. Like,
here
that's how
I
serious
go. But if you're my friend, and now if you're my long distance bestie, then you know over here we are all about growing older and growing more aware. And we focused over here. We're trying to confront these old habits. We're trying to unlearn and relearn. We're trying new things, bettering our ways. So yes, we're going to talk about our emotions. So this week I want to call a friend of ours to join us for this conversation. So Marlon is a friend from way back. But now he's also a husband, a father, and to me, he's just an all-around great guy. But of course, he's more than all of those labels, as we all are. So he's going to provide us with some perspective and some very enlightening points of views. So let's call Marlon.
Let's call him up.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Marlon.
Hey, Marlon.
What's going on?
Oh, not much. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic.
It's so good to see you, Marlon. Like, I have not seen you in so long.
Like years.
And when Mia was talking about this topic and she mentioned your name, I was like, this is the perfect person. So I've been really excited to have this conversation with you. So like what we're really trying to do is just get pretty much your perspective as a man on emotional intelligence, not just you, but your species as well.
Right.
Your species.
Well, that definitely, I would say that adds to the pressure, but it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, we wanted to get a trusted male perspective because this is such an important topic.
It is. It absolutely is. And first, let me say thank you for thinking of me. I'm honored. I love the both of you guys. We've known each other for a long time, but it seems like you said, it seems like we haven't actually seen each other, which is true. But I've been keeping up with you all and watching you on social media. And I'm absolutely over the hill proud of both of you and all you've been able to do in this life. So congrats up to this point and keep going.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I got the
so
little
sweet. I know,
right?
Thank you. And you too. Like
I was gonna say, likewise.
Yeah, like we have been keeping up with you as well. That's why your name came to mind. And when we first actually thought about the podcast and made a list of guests, like before we even made our first episode, your name was on the list already. So we knew we were going to have you on. And I don't know. I feel like what you have to say, especially about this topic, is just so important. And also is just, I feel like the way you're going to articulate it is going to be understandable for me and Mia as women, and also for our men listeners as well. So
right.
I'm sorry for raving, but thank you.
No pressure though.
No, it's
no
absolutely
pressure
fine. It's one of the things possibly we'll talk about, but it's one of the things that helps me be comfortable in a lot of situations. And so what that is I will try to display or try to put out that which I want to receive in return. So if I need comfort or reassurance, I will look to reassure someone else in the hopes that it will somehow come back to me. And so that's going to help me be as comfortable as possible here in this atmosphere. So thank you.
Right. I mean, you already hitting the nail on the head because, modeling the behavior that you want, that's already signs of a high IQ. So we're gonna roll right into it. So I was telling Jeanne earlier that your emotional intelligence is the ability to accurately perceive emotions in yourself and in others, and then you use that to guide your thinking and your actions. And so we wanted to talk about why your emotional intelligence is important. And I think, simply put, it affects your inner experience and your outer experience of life in a very profound way that a lot of people don't recognize. So things like self-awareness, self-regulation, keeping stress in check, and then helping us to genuinely just like ourselves. That self-esteem piece, we all tend to struggle with that here and there, and some more than others, but that's why your emotional intelligence is super important. And then it gives you a capacity for empathy. So empathy is really important, especially with the year that we've been having. We all have a shared experience with this pandemic. And so we got to have the ability to understand and share these feelings with other people. That, it produces that connection, and it gives you compassion for other people, and their struggles. Y'all feel free to stop me at any point and chime in, because I've been thinking about this so much. It's been one of the only things, other than Joe Biden winning the president for like 11 times. That's the only thing that's been on my mind.
I definitely agree with you,
I,
Mia, when you talk about emotional intelligence and how it will make your your life on the outside and the inside better. Go ahead, Marlon. What were you saying?
oh no, I was gonna absolutely agree as well. It's so important that we prioritize the growing of our emotional intelligence, right? And so I would just like to give my quick definition of what I think emotional intelligence is to me. And for me, it's the learning of how to process, navigate, and express my emotions both within myself and towards others successfully. And so I think that lines up exactly what you said, Mia.
Yeah, that's absolutely, like, that's it.
Spot
That's what
on.
it is. That's exactly what it is. A lot of people, um, a lot of times they tend to have one or the other, or neither. They tend to have one or the other, so they can focus on themselves and understand themselves, but they completely don't understand other people's experience, or they totally relate with other people, but they're disconnected from self, or they don't have a single clue in the world.
They are floating through life.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, it's really important. This is a skill and a muscle that we have to get stronger in to, just be better as people. And so I was thinking, nowadays there's this real emphasis on our feelings and our emotions and turning inward, working on self, which is a huge shift from, I feel like, what it used to be. We,
Yes.
in this country, it was all about output. You're a machine, you're a robot, produce, go, 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 work, 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 money, money, money. Like, there's a shift though. And so now I think maybe with millennials and like Gen Z, or just, people learning better, we want wellness, we want happiness and fulfillment in other ways, not just money. I don't want to be sucked dry and worn thin. I don't want to be overworked and underpaid, even though I am.
We
Like,
all.
yeah, there,
Oh,
people in the world have experienced terrible things, all different types of neglect and abuse and adverse conditions, but we need that connection. We need that support. We need that care. And I think for us, like nowadays, we want, and there's an emphasis on who we are as people and not what we do, and not where we come from. We all want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be felt. That's the human experience in a nutshell. That's what drives our connection.
Mia, I kind of wonder like when that shift you were talking about actually begin with the generations wanting and driving for different things, because I look at my parents and they were part of that go 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 generation. Like my
Mm-hmm.
dad is just starting to slow down and he's in his late 50s at this point, and he's slowing down, but he's still talking about doing
Yeah, yeah.
more. And when I mention like wellness, he kind of look at me funny. And but it's weird because like my mom kind of focused on wellness a little more than my
Mm-hmm.
dad did. So I guess it affected men more, especially back then, in working and trying to provide. So I don't, and you can chime in on that, Marlon, if you have any type of perspective about that. But from what I see and from my examples that I have, it seems like my my dad, had the brunt of it. and I'm talking about when it's work related. So I know that emotional intelligence can tie into work and tie into personal life as well. And I don't know if like the lack of focusing on wellness was him lacking in emotional intelligence in that area. Because I think it was something that I read once Mia was talking about, speaking to you about emotional intelligence, that said there was 4 things, right? 4 things that attribute to emotional intelligence. And one of them was social awareness.
Yeah.
And there was one more. Relationship management,
social awareness, self-awareness, and there is one other one that I cannot recall right now.
Self-management.
Maybe. You might be right. But yeah, those things are super duper important. I wonder, have you ever asked your dad those things?
You know, we have had that conversation when I was 29 about to turn 30. I had that conversation with both of my parents because like I was basically, like, you know, Mia, but I was basically having a breakdown because I was wondering like, how did y'all get here when y'all were 30 and I'm not there and y'all had 3 kids. So my dad, he basically, that's what he talked about. He said, you know, once I had kids, I knew that I had to provide. So I went to work, making $5.50 an hour.
Wow.
That blows my mind every time.
Bruh. At like some factory in Jennings. And then I remember like riding with my mom to go pick my dad up from work. So like I couldn't have been that young. And then finally he started working offshore, and then he went to school, got a job at the plant. So his thing was provide, and always find a better way to provide for my family, no matter how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it ultimately affected his health because he passed out on the porch getting off work one day.
Wow. See, that's that machine. Work. Do. It's all about the money.
It's the physical representation of what's going on the inside. You know, I'm gonna bounce around just a little bit. Mia, to answer your question of where the shift happened, if I may, I want to say that it was when the internet started to gain traction and people started to connect with each other that had similar life experiences, right? And it wasn't solely based on where you were from or what your parents did or what school you went to. You know, you got into similar interest groups and all of these things, so you were able to connect to people that were going through some of the same things that you are, and it opens your eyes to the world, right? And it says that, you know, what I feel is not only what I feel, it's what we feel. You know what I mean? And so it helps to know that somebody else is going through something similar for you to say, wow, I need to prioritize, right? And then Jeanne, to your effect with your father, that's the male experience, especially in this country, right? And then to get more specific with subgroups for African American men, right? We were the load carriers of not only our immediate family, but sometimes our whole family. You know, it'll be a handful of men carrying the weight of his wife and kids, his sisters if they aren't married, his mom if the dad has passed away, his you know, all these things, nieces and nephews. And so that weight doesn't allow for excess weight that you can cut off, if that makes sense. And not that it's healthy to cut those weights off, but it's like my main priority is providing. And so however I can provide and still be physically there, like emotions are put on the back burner at that point. And it's like, I'll be emotionally available when I can, And if I can't, my family has to understand that I'm out
Wow.
providing.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that just it's all like a pebble in the snow when it's rolling downhill. And so men know, trust me, men know and are aware of emotion, right? But in a situation like that, it's like I almost have to cut my emotions off to successfully provide, but then my emotions flare up on me. And then I seem like I'm going through these crises all the time, all the time. And so when I go through that, I got to tuck that under too. I can't let that get to the surface because if for the male species, if you will, adequacy is very important.
Okay.
And whenever adequacy is questioned, like men oftentimes go off their rocker. If people start to see that I'm no longer capable, then something has to be wrong with me.
Wow.
And that just keeps adding and adding and adding. And then you have to add the African American experience to it in today's age. You know, it's like it's more, and then it's a shovel full, and then another shovel full, and then another shovel full. And when you look up and you say, "Wow, where has my life gone?" You know, and it's like I have these kids, but I don't really know them like I want to. You know, I used to take my wife out dancing, or we used to go to the movies, but I'm working OT trying to save up, send our kids to college so they don't have as much stress. I'm trying to build a bigger house. I'm trying to, all these things that require effort, right? And when we don't take the time to prioritize our emotions, the physical body suffers.
Ooh, I
And
got
so
goosebumps.
health then comes into play. You get up in age, for a lot of African American men, you got diabetes, you got heart disease, you got different forms of cancer, you got, your body starts to break down. That's a real thing. If you're working for 4 years straight, you cannot expect your body to hold up in your 50s like it did in your early 20s.
You're right about that.
And
You're
so
right.
the emotional response is also there. Like, how can I deal with my body failing me?
Yeah, you're right. You're going to help somebody today. I just said that you going to help somebody today. LDBs, pay attention. Absolutely. So
get your notebooks out. I hope you got your pen and paper ready.
Like, where's my pen? You are absolutely right. But this is also, this is like class for Jeanne and I, because we can speak from a woman's perspective, but that's exactly why I wanted to have you on, because you can tell us that other side that we need to hear. And so when you were talking about, physically and, for my family, I have to do these things, and emotionally, I'll get to it. And then we look up and, years have gone by and we don't know our families and our friends and our children. We don't know ourselves. And so I was thinking, what does this look like for me? And, y'all can chime in the way, what it looks like for you. I was just thinking, I want to take care of what I need to take care of in my life, as far as like my responsibilities, obligations, so forth and so on. But I want to be in tune with that higher version of myself. I want to feel that connection to God. I want to feel that connection to myself and others, but I also want to be emotionally equipped to navigate those ups and downs that are going to happen anyway. And then I want to be able to be of service to others and be able to think of others and not be self-absorbed all the time. And that is how I've learned to look at my emotional intelligence and how I can continue to get better with it. So I was, thinking, what about you guys? What does that connection to self and to others feel like or look like to you or for you?
Honestly, for me, and like I say this all the time, like I'm still in the oven. Like when Marlon was talking about taking that extra and cutting it off. Like that's basically what I do. When we were talking about the 4 things that attributes to emotional intelligence, one of the things that I struggle with the most is self-management. And I think that that's one of the things that disconnects me. Well, not really disconnects, but makes it harder for me to form relationships, because having, emotional intelligence enough to be able to excel in your personal life and in your work life, so that you basically don't take so many things personal or isolate yourself from people. It's still something that I'm struggling with. And it's not because like I'm sensitive and I take things personally. I honestly, I don't know exactly what it is. Like Mia, if you could probably help me with this. I know it's self-management. I just don't know exactly what it is about it that makes me do the things that I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I wouldn't even say it's like avoidance or anything like that, because you're very self-aware and you are open to when another person shares what their experience is of you. You're open to that. But that self-management piece, it may be, okay, so I know it's these 6, 7 things. Where do I start? I don't know how to tackle it. So
thank you. Exactly.
that is my, that's been my experience. It's not like you are just like dead to the
That's
world
true.
or dead to
But I
connection. It's
know
just,
I know that one main thing about it is I do struggle with adapting to circumstances, like changing circumstances, especially if it's frequent. I do struggle with that. So I don't know. I know it's something I need to work on. I'm like I said, I'm still in the oven. When it comes to people, other people in the relationships that I do have currently, I feel like I have higher emotional intelligence towards others than I do towards self. I think I'm one of those people that you're talking. You agree? I see
that's
you
like,
saying
well,
twice.
I'm saying based on those things, that's sort of like a self-awareness thing, self-management mainly, because I do think you are extremely self-aware.
Yeah, so that's where I stand. Marlon, you can go ahead because I'm still thinking. Honestly,
I am such an encourager. I want to tell you that it's something that I came across on social media, and I usually don't take these things as seriously as I took this particular piece of advice, but I'm going to share it. Because you're so aware of others, try to love and think of yourself as if you would do a loved one, right? And that might help you to prioritize you just as much as you prioritize others. Because if I make it religious, you can't pour from an empty cup.
that's so
true.
true.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to. It's so important. It's twofold, but it's onefold, because without one side of the fold, you won't be able to successfully operate in the other fold.
Right.
And so, please, by all means, you're so incredibly great to the people around you. Keep it up. Like, don't let those things, the changing of situations, and I'm like that too. I I love subtle changes, but I do not like abrupt changes, right? But being aware of that is like, okay, you can psych yourself up. It's almost like jumping double dutch. If you can feel the abrupt change coming, you can get on your toes. You can bounce around a little bit, and when that change comes, you jump right in. But as far as for me, connection, um, self-awareness for me is looking in the mirror and being okay with who's looking back at me, right? No matter the emotional state. Like, I may be going 100 different ways, but I still have to look in the mirror and say, you know what? The person that I see is acceptable in my eyes. And then to flip that onto others, I have to be open enough to see people for who they are, where they are, and what they're going through, and still value them, right? And the importance of that is community. Nothing thrives without healthy community. And if we prioritize community, we're going to automatically prioritize others and then automatically prioritize ourselves.
That's good. I like that a lot. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
When I think about emotional intelligence, like we've been talking about self-awareness, isn't it crazy when you notice someone who's not self-aware at all? And it's like, oh, it's no judgment, but it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And you can, what can you say? People lacking in emotional intelligence, they seem like they can't control their emotions. They seem like they can't, do what you were saying, look in the mirror and be okay with what they see. They constantly say or do the wrong things at the wrong times, or they just have that low EQ. They don't have the ability to self-regulate. And, this thing, the do the work thing, they haven't done the work. And so tell me if you have encountered someone or multiple people who have these traits. They're argumentative. They don't listen. They're always blaming others. They tend to have emotional outbursts. They always have to be right. They're completely oblivious to other people's feelings. They tend to be insensitive. They have poor coping skills. And like John and I were talking about earlier, they struggle with interpersonal relationships, whether they're intimate relationships, family relationships, or friend relationships. And they always tend to turn the conversation towards themselves. So I'm thinking, I do know people like this. And it's not that they are narcissists or they're just like buttholes, but they have a low EQ. And so, because a low EQ, it doesn't mean you're a horrible person. Like you're kind of trash, kind of toxic, but there's hope for you, right?
I think we all have people in our lives, our relationships with people that we just, is that person, for the LDBs that don't know, is that person that you look at and you think, that's just how they is.
Right.
Right?
It's like maybe you just haven't come into the understanding of the importance of that inner self work. Like we cannot emphasize that enough. They just haven't done the work yet. I'm not going to label them and call them like trash individuals unless we're talking about Donald Trump, but we're not going to get into that.
Who's a trash individual?
They're just people who haven't done the work. So I guess my question is, can you build or strengthen your emotional intelligence? And if so, how do you do that?
So I definitely believe that you can build and grow your emotional intelligence. It would be a disservice to yourself if you don't do those things, right? It will put you at a disadvantage in this life. And for some of us, we're already at a disadvantage. So why add to that disadvantage piece?
So true.
And my perspective of how you do it is first admitting that you don't have the level of intelligence that you would like to have. That is hard for people to do. That is hard for people to do. But if you don't do it, situations will do it for you.
Oh, right? Yes, baby.
You ain't lying.
And so you will come across someone that has a high EQ and they're going to
body you.
Oh my God. They're going to show you a mirror that doesn't lie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you're gonna you have no option but to see yourself, right? And that's just the first step. And then after admitting that you don't have that level of emotional intelligence, once you have to surrender that lack of knowledge, right? You got to recognize it and then surrender it. Like you can't grab hold of something while still holding what you have in your hand.
That's a word.
Yeah.
And amen, because it takes, when the other thing is, it's a process. Don't mistake it. Don't mistake when you don't see people like our situation, we haven't physically seen each other in a very long time, but we know that changes have been going on over the years. And so don't misplace that dispensity of time that has been going on. You don't know what situations I've been going through. I don't know what
Facts.
situations you've been going through. And every situation is a chance to grow, right? And so the process is um, you make room to lay a foundation, right? You accept it, you surrender it, and then you understand that it's a process. And so where do I start? Um, you can make a checklist, you can, just be conscious of it or subconsciously aware of, the situations that you've gone through. And it's also hard to do that for some people because they're floating through life at this point. 30-year-olds,
Right.
trust me, there are a lot of 30-year-olds, 30
Oh,
something year olds
absolutely.
that are floating through life. They are still doing things that they were doing when they were 19, still
Oh,
giving in to
yes.
the same urges, still enjoying the same type of party, still, not saying that you have to cut people off, but you have to. The world is so big. If you don't meet any new people, how can you expect to grow?
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I would tell people, I would urge people, treat it as an investment. Treat the whole process as an investment unto yourself. And we all know that good investments have great returns, and
Mm-hmm.
so the investment that you place on your emotional intelligence into your emotional intelligence is going to reap so much more than is that you sow. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's simple when you say it like that, but it's hard because life gets in the way. Life happens to you. You still have to go to work. You still have to raise your kids. You still have to be a husband or a husband or wife. You still have to be a good son, a good daughter. You still have all these responsibilities, but you also have to prioritize your emotional intelligence. And then the final thing is communication. Without healthy communication with the people around you, you're destined to fail at anything you do. Because people need to know, number one, what you're going through, number two, that you're working on it, and number three, that sometimes I need to prioritize that over you. And people don't like that all the time. You know, people will just as easily cut you off if you don't keep them at the same level of priority as life goes on. And then that helps you out with your emotional intelligence too, because you see that those type of people aren't necessarily the people that you want around anyway, if they can't see the value in you growing yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, um, have you always been more in tune with yourself and have had that for others? Because this is like Marlon is teaching us
Right.
a master class tonight. Okay, we in night school,
We
but
should charge them a subscription for this.
but have you, because it really does take, when you put all those pieces together, I'm thinking about for self and for other people, that requires a level of not just emotional intelligence, but that requires some vulnerability that a lot of people are
Mm.
not accustomed to having
So true.
to have. So have you always been this in tune with things like that and with other people as well?
Um, for me, at an early age, I was far more in tune with myself than I was towards other people. And that was because my immediate household, I'm the youngest of four, right? We all have, we all have our personalities. Sometimes they clash. Most of the time they get along fine for a time. And, and then I'm a part of a very large extended family. So I have
Mm-hmm.
cousins out the wazoo, I have aunts and uncles out the wazoo, all of those things. And so sometimes being the youngest, you can't always do everything that the older siblings or older cousins can do. And so you almost you either have to go inside with the grown folks or you have to find a place that you can be okay in, you know. And for me, that space was, you know, alone time, silent time, thinking time. Even though I was a little kid, I always tell my cousins that they don't remember how I remember, right? And so someone would always find me sitting on the porch or sitting in the backyard or sitting in my room, and it would be weird to them. It's like, what you doing in here by yourself? And I'm just, you know, nothing, just
Right.
right. Um, and so it took some time to grow that towards other people, but I'm thankful that for a very long time now, for most of my adult life, I have had, highly prioritized both, right? And I think the greatest, um, the greatest piece that has come from that is that I've grown to be an empath, right? I feel at a high level, not only what I feel, but what other people feel. Um,
Right.
and so that allows me to, number one, listen better. That allows me to slow down enough to actually care for people and not on a surface level, right?
Right.
A lot of my friends, a lot of my family, they'll tell me something at one particular season, and then it'll be years down the line, and I just say, "Hey, how are you doing with that?" And they're like, "Man, I don't even remember telling anybody that I was going through that." And I'm like, I felt it when you said it, but I also continued to feel it after we talked about it.
That's super
Um,
deep.
Right.
that helped. The other thing about it is it helped me be okay with being vulnerable. Um, for a long time, I haven't been able to be vulnerable with my own personal stuff, but because other people are so comfortable being vulnerable with me, that helped me to say, you know what, it has to be a balance, right? I can't, people can't just lean on me. I have to be able to lean on people as well. Um, and so that's one of the great things that came out of that.
I
That's
was
amazing.
gonna say, like, you seem very balanced on both sides because it's 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 a good thing to be an empath, but at the same time, it can be kind of dangerous, and that's one of the things that I struggle with. I am also
Mm-hmm.
an empath, and I take on a lot of other people's emotions and
Mm-hmm.
situations, and
A lot.
this one, but because I'm still struggling with balancing myself and my own emotional intelligence, it's dangerous for me because there's times when I just feel so overwhelmed, like, and I feel like I can't help anybody, and I feel like I have to distance myself and basically, like I said earlier, isolate myself from people so that I can get better. But it's like a cycle for me. Like, you know, I'm working on it. Talk to my therapist, she helped me out. So, you know, but it's impressive when you talk about it because it seems like you got it figured out. How,
My goodness.
and I know that's not true because it's never true. Like, we
It's
never have
never,
it figured out.
never.
But how, what age were you when you felt that shift from you carrying, like, having that self feeling and
Mhm.
then being able to project that onto others? When did you start feeling that shift and that it started being more balanced out for you?
Um, I'll practice what I preach and be transparent with you all. In high school, you all know it. I played a lot of sports, and I love them all.
Superstar.
Um, oh, please don't do me like that. Thank you.
Superstar.
Um, but football was my most beloved sport. It was the sport that I started playing around 6 or 7 years old. Um, Senior year, it was a hellish time for football season,
Mm-hmm.
injury after injury.
Mm-hmm.
I had some some college offers on the table, injuries, and then some effect to my academics. All of those things went away. I was forced to make a decision that I didn't want to make. My final football game was as a Lagrange Gator, and I came in contact with that all truthful mirror that I talked about earlier, and it showed me my humanity, right? And it was like, man, you have such these high expectations, you have such these high hopes, and in 2 hours, all of those things can be taken away in a split second for some of us.
Yeah.
And that put me on the path of being more aware of others, because if I can go through it, I'm not the least of these, but I'm also not the greatest of these either. So if I can go through something as life-changing as this, what is everybody else going through? What are the greater of these going through? And more importantly, what are the lesser of these going through? And so once I got on that path, I went to play college basketball. I was hurt emotionally by a few people that I trusted dearly. And that further put me in a position to say, you know what? I'm not going to be known for what I've been known for. I'm going to be known for something that's going to supersede me. And so now a lot of the people that I meet, they already know, not a lot of people that I meet, but a lot of people that I begin to come in contact with after that first meeting, they already know what I'm about. They already know what type of person I am, right? And so I want to say to you, Jeanne, don't work on it, but don't feel any type of way because you're going through a cycle, right? Don't feel any type of way that you need to distance yourself a little bit. And it's a difference between isolation and separation, right? When you're separated from something, you can kind of say, well, I'm probably not coming back to that. I'm not gonna come back to this situation. I'm not coming back to this particular place or whatever it may be. But when you're in isolation, that just means you are in a different place than the whole. But it's always available to come back when you're prepared to. And I'm flattered that you think, or it sounds like I have it figured out, but I'm not, I took that pressure off of me to say, I need to be everything for everybody. That is number one, it's self-centered, right? And number two, it's selfish, because it's self-centered is pretty explanatory, but it's selfish because you are just as important as the people that you care about. And so just like you would say, hey, whatever you need to do in this situation, you do that and I'll support you, whatever that looks like, right? Tell yourself the same thing. If I need to stay at home and not have human contact for today and tomorrow, that is what I need for the situation. And I will support myself in that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off, but can I cancel my BetterHelp subscription? I think I'm paying too much. Marlon, I could just call. Can I call you like once every 2 weeks?
I am really shook right now, because as soon as he said that is actually selfish, and that I was like,
saw your face.
Like, I'm shook because I never thought of it that way. I was just thinking, I have to do all of these things, because if I don't do them, they either won't get done or they won't get done to my level of whatever.
Satisfaction.
My level of satisfaction, my level of perfection, whatever. And again, like that's stuff that, you know, I talked to my
Right.
therapist
And
about.
it,
But
and
it's
it,
just
and it
like,
is very selfish when you think about it. Like my therapist has actually said this to me. That's why I'm like, can I just cancel the subscription?
But more than it being selfish, it is unnecessary pressure. And that's what you said. And we got to release ourselves of that pressure, because we are doing ourselves a disservice. We are beating our own selves up more than our family, more than the world is. And that's a lot of times that's the worst, because if you're beating yourself up, how are you ever going to get around to doing what you need to do for you? And I feel like I need to go sit in the corner.
Like, that's honestly, like, that is like the woman's plight. Like when we were talking about Marlon, when you were talking to us about what is like as an African American man and emotional intelligence, cutting that off. As a woman, we just feel like we have to support. Like that's what we have to do, and we have to be there for everybody. Like Mia is not as much as a people pleaser as I am, but I know I'm this way because that's how my mom is. Like my mom is very stern and blunt, but at the same time, she will cut off her foot for someone. She overextends so much. And I tell her all the time, like, you ain't gotta do, what are you
so
doing,
many
girl?
like that is the woman's plight. That is the Black woman's plight. I will go without, I will cut off my foot. I will let the light bill go unpaid to help you. I'm going to do whatever, because I don't know, that's just inside of us. But it's like at the expense of all of the things that you need in life, whether it is spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally. It's a lot. It's a lot for Black men. It's a lot for Black women. And, you know, like I said, at
8 hours of sleep, working, like, like that's what they say we need. 8 hours of sleep, working, trying to achieve our own dreams and goals, and then having emotional intelligence, meditating, praying, doing yoga. Like it's just so much.
It's like you need 36-hour days to get all that stuff done.
That's crazy.
And
but go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
To your effect, Mia, I think that's how African American women have been conditioned to love or express love by being so selfless, almost to a fault. And it's like, that's unfair, because we all matter. No one, especially such queens and such prized people as African American women, should have to endure those things. And it sends me to a place of manlyhood, and I hate to say it like that, but I'm like, man, how can I fix it? Like, how can I change the world in such a way that all people, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you're going through, don't have to go through it as much as they are. And I'm gonna tell myself, and that's selfish on my part, because how can you grow if I take all of your pain, all of your weight, you know what I mean? Like, how can I expect you to grow in the way that you need to? And it I use pain to get me to the place that I use pain, not that I invited pain, but I use the pain of my life to get me to this place. And so that's the respect what other people are going through sense of emotional intelligence. Like, even though I could possibly alleviate some of the things, should I? You know, and that's where intelligence comes in. What grows people? A lot of times it's pain. Success rarely grows people. I'm just going to throw that out.
That is, I'm telling you, you stepping all on my toes tonight.
I know, right? Look,
Marlon is taking up a love offering after this. I just want y'all to know. We passing the plate. We're going to pass the plate tonight.
Look, send us your cash out. We'll put it in the description box.
I want to say thank you to your wife for some reason. I don't know why, but I feel like
I was thinking this. When he was talking, I was like, I wonder, and you can answer this question. I was thinking like, I wonder if when he met his wife, did that help like increase his emotional intelligence? Like that relationship,
Yeah.
was that part of the reason why your emotional intelligence today is so high?
Absolutely. And I will say that my wife is one of the biggest driving forces in my continued growth. She has allowed me the space to learn and grow and understand. In certain areas, my wife is more emotionally intelligent than I am. And so when it's like an anchor, my wife is my anchor a lot of times, most of the time, because I'll say it like this: throughout life, when the fool tries to come out of me, and oftentimes when it does come out of me, there's only a few people in this world that can draw the fool back into myself. As a youngster, it was my mom. And now that I'm married, it is I've added a person to that mix, and she's the forefront. She's in the forefront of that list. And that's my wife. And the food comes out a whole lot less now because I have a whole lot more to lose or to
Right.
damage at this point. But when it does, she is strong enough to deal with the fool in me, and that came from experience. Before we got married, there was a situation, and probably at that time in the last 6 or 7 years, that was probably the most intense that I have ever been. That particular situation, and she saw that, and she chose to continue to be with me. She chose to continue to love me, even though she had seen the Hulk in me, right? She seen Bruce Banner every other day, but that day she saw the Hulk, and she chose to continue to support me and be there for me. And so, huge kudos to my wife. And I have a group of friends that also support me, and I am vulnerable with those people almost to a fault of my own. Like, they know things about me that the world would probably never know. And that's another point, that you need that. You need people to know more than you want them to know, because when you want to act out, they can call you out on the food that they know to be true.
Yep.
And so, absolutely, I went to another level when I got married. So, yeah.
Ooh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I was just like, I don't know why she keeps coming to mind. I've never met her. I've only seen her in pictures, but I was just like, I have to acknowledge his wife. I know from a woman's point of view what it is, what it can be, what it feels like, what it looks like. I know the difficulty.
Okay, Mia, this conversation with Marlon was so great.
Amazing.
I just love everything that he's been saying. I think it's so important. So what we want to do is we want LDBs to join us next week while we continue this not so private conversation about emotional intelligence with Marlon Washington.
Yes. So join us next week for part 2 of our conversation with Marlon.
Thank you so much, long distance besties, for joining us again for another not so private conversation. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Jeanne V. Williams. That's at Jeanne, Jeanne V. Williams, and at Perfectly Mia. That's at Perfectly MIA. And if you have any topic suggestions or any questions, shoot us an email at notsoprivatepod@gmail.com.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We definitely appreciate it. Remember to leave a review on Spotify, Apple, and Google. You can also find us at Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Overcast, and Breaker. And you can find us on anchor.fm/NotSoPrivatePod. Now you can also hear us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Not So Private Podcast channel. Now, with all of that being said, join us next time for another Not So Private conversation.